So now we've had that overview of model-driven apps and we're excited about them. Let's go in here and let's build our first model-driven app. And so the first thing we need to do though, is we're going to scroll down here to the bottom of our screen and we're going to click on, you see where it says Canvas? We're going to hit this drop down and choose our design mode and choose model-driven. Now real quick, if you're not seeing this, what could happen is notice that I'm in my Courseware Electronics CDS environment. If you were still in your original environment, right, we did not provision CDS or any of that, we don't have the ability to jump into model-driven. So just make sure that you're in the CDS environment because we need to take advantage of that database that we've already created in those entities. So we're going to say choose a design mode and we're going to say model-driven. So here you'll see we go from that black background based stuff to white, so that's how we know we're in the right place. And this is where we get started with model-driven apps. And so just like with Canvas apps, we're going to click on apps. And so here you can see that there's a couple sample apps that have already been provisioned for me. And so you could take a look at those when you get a chance to give you some ideas of how this might work. But today you have me as a guide, and as your guide I'm going to say, let's create an app. So we'll click create an app. It's going to open up a new tab in our browser window and bring us to a screen where we get to say, all right, now that I want to create an app, what are we going to call this app? We're going to call this Courseware Electronics Travel App, like so. So then it went ahead and provisioned us a unique name as we would expect. We could give our app a description we've talked about before, so that way when people are finding it, they can get a description of what's going on in your app. For the icon, right now we're going to use a default image. If you deselect this, it would show you all of the images that have been added to your environment, and so you could choose a different one. So as you get a little more advanced, you might want to upload custom images and have your apps represented by those. But for today, we're just going to use a default image. For the client here, we have two options. We have the web interface or the unified interface. So the unified interface is what we're going to use. And the way that I always think of that is that's just the new hotness, right? That is the current trajectory. That is where all the new investments are. That's where, if you're coming to this to learn from me, that's the thing we want to use. If you're an old school, you've been doing this more from the dynamic space for a long time, or you have old existing legacy apps you want to come in and build around, then you'd want to use the web client. But for us, we're always going to choose the unified interface. You'll also see here that we have an app URL suffix. So this will be the URL to our app. And so maybe Courseware Electronics TR doesn't work, so maybe we would make this just be our travel app. All right? So we can kind of customize that URL right now so we can make it a little more user-friendly when we start passing that out. All right, so that's our URL. Then down here at the bottom, we have an option for use existing solution to create the app. This is the same type of thing. If you're coming from a dynamics, you have a bunch of data, and then you have a solution already, and you want to just create an app wrapped around that, then you could choose this. There are also scenarios where you might use this later on, but for right now, we don't have any existing solutions, so we're not going to do that. And then finally at the bottom, the last option here is choose a welcome page for the app. So choose a welcome page for the app gives you the capability to go in and set a text-based type of page where you want the app to actually load when they first come in. So maybe you would use this to provide some training, an overview, a link to a video on how to use the app or how to properly fill it out in a compliant fashion, right? Maybe you're using this for something a little more complex like that. So another one of those options we're not going to mess with today, but does give you a little more flexibility as you're building your app. So I think that all looks good, right? In the grand scheme of things, we just needed to give it a name. We updated the URL suffix. We didn't have to, but we did that just to kind of be a little fun. Probably give it a description when it hurt, but that's more me typing, you watching. You don't want that. So I think we're good. So we'll go up here and we'll click done. And so here in a few seconds, we'll have our first model-driven app. We're dropped into the app designer, and in the next video, we'll pick up here.